Thoughts on the readings for February 4th, Exodus 10, Psalms 64, 65, Romans 15, 16. Exodus 10 records plagues 8 and 9, the ravenous grasshoppers, plague locusts, and the intense supernatural darkness, which gripped every Egyptian household. Israel has been learning of what Yahweh's name meant personally to them. Remember that God has severed his people from the Egyptians from plague 4 onwards. Well might they say what the Psalmist recorded, 27 verse 1. The Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear? ESV. Note that the record in Exodus 10 verses 23 shows that the Israelites were given light from their deliverer. After the 8th plague, Pharaoh's nobles pleaded with him to give in to the God of Israel before Moses. As his representative, totally destroyed Egypt. Pharaoh proposed a compromise by allowing the adult males opportunity to sacrifice. Moses said, "No, everyone must be allowed to leave." Moses and Aaron were forcibly driven from Pharaoh's presence. This stubbornness from Pharaoh resulted in Moses invoking Yahweh's might, bringing the most devastating and ravenous locusts ever seen in Egypt. Pharaoh hastily summoned the Lord's envoys, telling them that he was sorry for his mistake. The locusts were taken away, but Israel's sovereign knew the king's response would be to harden his heart once Pharaoh had been given remission. The plague of unnatural darkness followed, entirely enveloping every Egyptian household for 3 days and producing terror. Pharaoh, once again, calls for Moses and Aaron and tells them that all the people can go, but the livestock must stay. "Not so," says Moses, "we must bring our offerings with us." Pharaoh would not hear any of this and told Moses and Aaron to leave and never come back. "If you see me again, it will be your death sentence." Psalm 64 is from David's pen. In it he asks his sovereign to hide him from his foes and be his deliverer. Those who plotted his destruction and used their bitter words as arrows would themselves be destroyed by Yahweh's arrow of deliverance for his righteous servant. Let us learn that our God will likewise show himself strong in supporting those who trust him. Mankind will be in awe of their Creator and ponder his power. As a result, the righteous will be emboldened in praise and extol the Almighty. A song of praise from David follows. The psalmist declares that the Lord's deeds demonstrate that he dwells in Zion, both in the past and especially during the kingdom age. This will cause the faithful to do as they have vowed. God had shown himself to be true to his promises to defend and deliver his dedicated disciples. David acknowledged his sins and seeks for forgiveness. David says that the chosen of God are blessed to dwell with their sovereign. The deeds of their Creator, seen in the establishment of mountains, the stilling of the seas, and the bountiful provision for all his creatures, produce praise from his people. In Romans 15 verses 4-6 we are told the purpose of the scriptures: whatever has been written has been recorded for us to learn, endurance, and comfort. Particularly note that we are told that it was firstly recorded for the purpose of the Christ. Verses 8-13 should be read slowly and allowed to understand that all scripture has been written to instruct us in the ways of patience and in a faithful walk before our God. Verses 14-21 speaks of God's will to save the Gentiles and for them to become obedient to the gospel on the basis of their faith. It allowed him to serve all who would be the recipients of salvation, starting with God's chosen people, verse 8, and flowing through to the Gentiles, verses 9-12. To whom Paul was the minister of revelation. The apostle outlines future travel plans, God willing, and the Lord's purpose for the God of peace to bring his children peace. Prayer that the God of peace may protect them. Chapter 16 verses 1-16 contains a list of faithful saints and fellow helpers in the furtherance of the gospel. How important it is to do whatever we can in advancing God's saving message to a perishing world. How great is our frequent need of friends to stand by us and encourage us to patiently continue in well-doing. The letter concludes with a promise from the Almighty to crush the perpetual persecutors of the saints, Rome the great Satan, in verse 20. The purpose of the letter concludes in a wonderful prayer of praise whereby God is extolled, and the intent of the letter and Paul's great commission to preach among the Gentiles the justification by faith that all may become obedient to the gospel of God. Penned by Warwick Rosser and his team, produced by christadelphinvideo.org.